to ask oneself is, for whom am I working? And to be utterly honest here, because even as so, the first thing is when I'm asking myself for whom am I working, uh, there is a first decision that one takes. So, first decision could be, there was a time in life where I decided, no, I do not want to work for mainstream education. I want to work for something which is much more nobler and which serves the society. So, there is a first decision there. So, for whom am I working? So, the first decision, is that related to motivations about money, livelihood, a certain system which I do not think is contributing to human well being? Or am I working for the well being of people? What is it that I'm serving? For whom am I working? And so that is the first decision that one takes. That's the first one. For whom am I working? The first decision that one takes, which is kind of the larger. One second. Okay, I'm going to pause the question. I'm just going to run through all the 12 characteristics and then I'm going to come to the questions. So, yeah, the first is, for whom am I working? In an overall sense of the word, which means which is the system that I'm overall serving. That's the first element. Then, for whom am I working moment to moment? For instance, even as one has kind of made this decision that, I would not like to serve the so as to say, a degenerating system. I would like to serve, building of a new creation, a new world through the building of Orwell. I've made that first decision. But then the second question comes, moment to moment. Moment to moment, who am I serving? Because I can come all the way here to Orwell and I can commit myself to Orwell. But moment to moment, I can feel like I'm serving my boss, or I'm serving this particular person, or I can feel like I'm serving this particular organization. And I can make it very, very limited. And when I can make it very, very limited, I can start to have these expectations like, we've been working for such a long period of time and I've been doing so much for you. What are you doing for me? When all these statements, all these emotions begin to kind of come inside of you, you might overarchingly be serving something noble, but in moment to moment, you're not really serving the highest aim with which you kind of began. So that is the second question. For whom am I, for whom am I working? Moment to moment. That's the second one. The third one is, why am I working? From which space is the action arising from? Is there a motivation for personal profit? Now, this is something which is, as I've noticed, this is very, very difficult to purify oneself of. Even as one has kind of chosen to work for something noble, even as one is kind of aspiring that I really want to work as a service to the divine. Often these very, very personal motives kind of creep in, and they creep in because until the action within oneself has not been purified, outwardly they will kind of creep in. For instance, in integral yoga psychology, we have a part of being which is the lower vital, which is just above the Muladhara chakra, no, the lower vital, which is all about the senses, right? And if that part of my being is not really, really refined, then even as I'm wanting to, serve and work to my full potential to give myself to the divine, that part will slyly creep in and bring in desires, bring in craving, and bring in that, sense of wanting comfort. So that really, really depends on the purification of each part of being. So that's the third question to ask oneself. Why am I working? Why is it that I'm working? What, from where is the action emerging from? And here, I'd also like to bring your attention to a subtle difference between what do you say, uh, your reason for working, because your mind can give a certain reason, and then the part of being through which you're working. Because the part of being through which you're working, that's a more lived psychological indicator of your true motivation for work. So in your mind, because you are sincere and you're working for the divine, you can feel like you're working for the divine. But if your parts of being are not really refined, then that is where you're really working for. And it's a huge, it's a long process of really refining all the different parts of being. So that's really the third aspect, which is to see why am I working, and to see more and more, am I really working from a certain deeper heart, from the psychic space into work. And that really is the third aspect. The fourth aspect of work as worship is, how are you working? Like Mother says, no task is big or small. What matters is the consciousness with which you do it, is how you do that work. So that's really the fourth aspect. Are you doing it with an aspiration of doing it as perfectly as possible? Because when that aspiration really comes, you can never get bored. You can never feel something is repetitive. You can never really, feel something is mechanical, because you're really trying to use work as only a context of bringing an inner perfection in terms of the consciousness with which you're working, as well as an outer manifest perfection. So when you look at it from that perspective, actually nothing can ever be boring. Something as mundane can be made into an extremely beautiful journey of Karma Yoga. The fifth aspect is, again, how are you working and what is your attitude? So the fifth is, what is your attitude in work? So you could, for instance, be working with an attitude that, I'm giving so much, I'm working and I'm offering and I'm serving, so I must be taken care of, you know. And especially because, when you read the Mother, she says that, when you're really serving, you will be taken care of. And you start feeling that, I'm serving a lot, but hey, I'm not getting fully taken care of. If even a little bit part of you is feeling like that, then that needs to be purified. So, what is the attitude with which you're working? And to be very consciously aware, because many times, just like Shravan and the Mother says, each one of us is made of different parts of being. So, one part of being has that aspiration, has that purity, but another part really does not. So, be consciously aware of what are the different attitudes with which I'm working. So, that's really the fifth one. Then the sixth is, it's the sixth is again under the same category of, how are you working? Are you working with the perspective of learning? Because work, truly speaking, is the greatest means of learning. You can really, all the knowledge, or all the lived embodied knowledge, all the learning that you need can really come through action and work. So, are you really approaching work as a process of learning? Because if you are, quite naturally, it will start making you younger. It will start making anything and everything extremely interesting. Just the other day, I was talking to a student of ours, and she was talking about, she's feeling sad in her organization because she feels that, this is not really leading to her learning and progress. But then after we had a conversation, and what came out of that conversation was that it's not like, even if you feel that, by doing this work, I'm not really growing, I'm not really growing in my skills, in my consciousness, that can never be the case, because you can always turn the tables around and make it into an opportunity for learning. The other thing is, oftentimes, whenever a work is given to us, we kind of feel, okay, this is the ambit of the work which is kind of given to us. And oftentimes we feel that, I'm not finding the work interesting because somebody else has given this work to me. And which is a complete illusion, because, and that is something that, people in Ottawa especially can vouch for it, because in the beginning you feel that, I was serving the system and now I'm free, and now I will just be able to flow. But it doesn't actually happen like that. So if one is not really able to flow as work is worship, that's not because the work has been given by somebody else. It is because of one's inner attitude. So coming back, anything can be made, any work which is kind of given to us can be made as a process of learning. And most often than not, whenever a work is given to us, we interpret, okay, this little, this is the work which is kind of being given to us. But it is actually only 1% of the work which is given to us. The 99% is what we make out of it. To give you an example, when I was talking to this student of ours who was saying that it's not leading to my learning and my growth, and I remember this one example when we began. Deepa shared about the integral education portal. So the work at that time, in the when we sat and had a meeting, let's build an integral education portal. The first work we began to do is let's make a compilation from the works of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. So that was practically the work that I was doing. So the work which was given to me was make a compilation on concentration from the works of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. But from that little seed, what was actually that took birth was an entire online learning journey called Swadhyaya. And from that has emerged the integral education in its present form today. So the work which was kind of so called given to me was so little. And what I made out of it, what could have been made out of it, is the other 99%. So each time one feels that, there isn't much for me to learn here, one must really reflect back as, how can I develop my faculties through this work? How can I develop consciousness through this work? How can I develop skills through this work? And more than anything else, how can I really go beyond the call of duty and really take it as a great learning opportunity? So that's really the sixth aspect. The seventh is, how are you working? Are you working with a deep awareness and a presence? Because what really makes the work mechanical and what really makes the work a burden, as somebody very frankly kind of shared, is when that sense of presence is missing. Our vital, which likes excitement, thinks that, it is probably I'm meant to do some other work now. And, I'm meant to swap from this work to the other work. Let me do something else. But it's not really that. It is the absence of that presence that brings freshness into life. So that is really the seventh aspect. The eighth is, how are you working using what parts of being? Because truly, like a embodied sense of really work as worship would be when all parts of one's being, be it the body, the senses, the power, the energy, the heart energy, the emotions, the mind, all of them are contributing to this work. So it could be, even doing as simple as making a poster. Ask yourself, am I using my faculty of aesthetic sense? Am I using my faculty of precise communication and speech? Am I using my capacity of beauty? Am I using my capacity of, invoking something deeper? And like that, just one aspect of, say, making a poster can be a myriad of things once one does it with awareness. Similarly, cooking. If one does cooking with awareness, actually, it can be a great method of developing aesthetic sense, of developing one's taste, texture, the senses, refining one's senses. It can be a great way of how do you, dine together, how do you set up a table, how do you make beautiful spaces, how do you meditate while cooking, how do you cut vegetables very, very precisely. So these very, very small little details begin to come alive into your life when all parts of your being are really given to that work. Ninth is, what is your vision with the work that you're doing? And that's an important question for each one of us to ask. That, the work that I'm doing, I'm contributing all my energies. Where is this, you know, what is the vision that it is feeding? And Mother and Sri Aurobindo, for those of us who, relate to Mother and Sri Aurobindo, they have given like a profound vision of a new world. So to ask oneself this question, how is it relating to the profound vision? And not just that, they've given like a very vague vision, they've actually brought it down into details of what that vision is in different fields of life, be it art, be it education, be it social work, be it rural development, in every aspect of life, and ask oneself, how am I aligning to the vision that they've given? The 10th is, how are you working in terms of your self drive? Now, this is an important aspect. Most people, um, most people are not really self driven, which is because of the tamas in the body, the inertia that is, that one is kind of, ordinarily the ego is passive, that the work is kind of given to me. But am I self driven? For instance, literally, practically speaking, you are in a group, you are in a meeting, everybody discusses the ideas about what can be done. How much of a homework are you willing to take by your own initiative? That is a certain very practical, very grounded indicator of the self drive. 11th, what work are you doing? Is it the work that you're meant to do? Is it bringing you in your full potential towards your highest aspiration? So, actually, in the hierarchy, this aspect of what work you're doing falls actually much later. Because, like I said in the beginning, the what work you're doing, you're you begin to do the work that you're meant to do only after you're sufficiently developed in your instrumentations. Until that point in time, you're individualizing, and mother is kind of preparing you for that. And the more important aspect is how are you working, and the what really comes later. So the 11th is, what are you doing? Because eventually there is a particular purpose that you're born with, that you're born to express in the world. And are you, and the indicators of that is joy, flow, feeling like you're coming alive in your full potential, and literally like a flow. It when you're really doing the work which is in alignment with your soul calling, the biggest feeling that you really get, that is of dissolution of the ego. You no longer is a an individual doing work. It is just work happening through you, and you are only an instrument. So that is really the 11th one, which is quite an advanced aspect. And the last is, what happens when challenges come, which is when challenges come at work, how you deal with that. That can really determine the degree to which you're really walking the path of work as worship.